Welcome back to the Illicit Feminine. Today, I am so honored to have a woman whose story, whose voice, and whose depth completely embodies what this podcast is all about. Today, we are talking to Wendy Harrop. I am going to read her bio because it is frankly fucking fabulous. Okay. Wendy Harrop owns the Phineas Wright House, a historic bed and breakfast on a small New England flower farm. By bringing the experience from her 30-year career as a wedding planner into everyday entertaining, she desires to have every guest feel welcomed, anticipated, and celebrated. She creates and curates opportunities for women to say yes to themselves through luxury culinary trips in the US and France, workshops and retreats in her 200-year-old barn, and farm stays at the B&B. She is the host of Say Yes to Yourself podcast, where she shares conversations with fabulous women incorporating the self-care practice in big and small ways. And I just have to say, I have personally stayed at this amazing bed and breakfast and highly, highly recommend it. We'll put the links in the show notes. Wendy is an amazing, do we call that when you run your own, that's a word.
Queen.
Proprietor.
Queen.
Queen. She is an amazing queen, of
Yes, I
course,
am the proprietor. Yes.
of this beautiful Phineas Wright House. And I have to add, Wendy is one of my most dear, dear friends, and I love her so much. And I'm so honored that you agreed to have a beautiful, triggering conversation today.
Hey, I am so here for it. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Thank you for your gorgeous, stunning friendship that spurns me on to growth and expansion in ways that I'm really not available for anything but. So thank you.
You are so welcome. And Wendy, I think that's one of the things I love most about you because as Wendy and I met 2.5 years ago, almost three,
Yeah. Yes.
right? At a retreat in Naples, Florida. And just to set the stage for a moment, like I walked into the room and there was this woman, stunning, in this cream jumpsuit that had like, is it birds of paradise that are on it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's my favorite outfit of all time.
Oh my God. Wooden bracelet and your jade bracelet, I
Mhm.
believe. And this, her hair's straight today, but she's also got this like fabulous mane of like curls. And I was like, I want to be her friend. And I actually thought because you were so stunning and I was not in the consciousness that I am in now, I was like, I'm like super intimidated by her. Like, I wonder if she's like kind of bitchy or like whatever. And then you opened your mouth, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's the nicest person in the entire world. However, what I love about you is like you are only available for like outstanding experiences. And I love that about you.
Yes, I am only available for what delights me.
Hmm.
And I think I probably handed you cookies that I had baked for
Oh,
everybody at the retreat
yes.
at that point too. So I'm not
Which,
bitchy. I'm very fun.
and those were obviously my own insecurities, right? Like coming
Isn't
through.
that fun?
Oh, and your cookie and her cookies, her everything,
You're
everything
so
she
sweet.
makes is amazing. Like we'll have to have like an episode just entirely on what Wendy makes, and she has fabulous cocktail hours that are live on Fridays on Instagram, and all this amazing maple scones and that oatmeal with the egg
Mm,
from Martha Stewart.
isn't it good?
I
Right?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's
It's
incredible.
so fun. It's this life of yes.
So why don't I want to jump in, but why don't you take a few minutes, Wendy, and explain? Because one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is I see that women think it is illicit, right, to say yes to themselves. I
Mhm.
see this day after day, hour after hour, and not necessarily with women who are like doing their emotional growth work, even
Mhm.
though it that comes up, right? But there's more of an awareness around that. But like in the general conditioned public, I believe that like saying yes to yourself is like almost as taboo as talking about abortion.
Totally.
Seriously.
I agree. I
So
totally agree.
Share a little bit of your, I mean, we're going to go through this because I want your story, but like your overall thought on saying yes to yourself and what you do, curating trips to France and like because it's all part of this.
Yes, it is. And it's so fun. It's fun to answer these questions as if we just met. So it's hard, it's either going to be a 22-minute podcast or 22 days, right? Like, I don't know how we're going to do that in
This
the
is the
middle.
first of many. Yeah,
Okay,
this is the
good,
first of many.
perfect. Okay. So I think what is so fabulous about saying yes to yourself and what my evolution into doing that was that the first time I uttered those words and uttered the words that I'm only available for what delights me, I shocked myself. I laughed out loud to myself, saying these words out loud by myself. Like, well, and who exactly do you think you are, little miss? And I thought it was so fascinating. I didn't even need to be policed by another person. I policed myself so quickly. And then, like you, we run to the shadow, like, oh, that's juicy. Let's get a flashlight in there. Wow. Okay. So I immediately, and to set the stage, this was during the pandemic, and that's really January of 2020 was, my moment of like a touchstone in retrospect of the beginning of this latest journey I'm on. I know we'll talk about that later, but so I was running toward the shadow. I was running toward anything that was my mindset had outgrown my habits at such an alarming rate that I would catch myself in conversation and have to stop mid-sentence and say, actually, I don't believe that anymore. Now I believe this. So in this tsunami of yes, which it's a lifestyle, it's a decision. It's not just something that I just say yes to a few things. You're either in or you're not.
Mm.
So what I'm desiring to do and modeling by going first, as in my circles, is normalizing saying yes to ourselves and refuting all of these reasons why we don't. And when I say everybody wins when you say yes to yourself, and then continuing to practice that until you believe that that's true for yourself. And this idea of giving from our saucer, people all the time say, oh, my cup is empty and you can't give from an empty cup and all of those things, which we know. So we give from our saucer. We fill our cup, it's overflowing, it lands in the saucer. That's what we give from. When the saucer is empty, we go back and fill our cup, which doesn't take very long because it's already at the top. It overflows, we give from our saucer. So I'm wanting to normalize this consistent, perpetual practice of selfishness, of self-awareness, of being in tune with what I desire, what feels like a yes to me. And then I'm 1,000 times better mom because of that. I'm 1,000
Absolutely.
times better friend. And I'm 1,000 times worse wife because I'm no longer one, because I'm a better person to myself.
Yes.
And the last thing I want to say about that is in this normalizing of saying yes to yourself, I create and curate opportunities for women to say yes to themselves over and over and over again. So you mentioned my France trips. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes some people will say, oh, I really, really want to go on one of those. It's on my bucket list. And I like, stop the car. Like, oh my gosh, first of all, this can't be on your bucket list. Do you know that I go on every single one of my trips? So you
Wendy,
can
how
go
many
on
times a
more
year
than
do you go
one.
to France?
As often as possible. Since I started doing this in October of 2021, I have spent, I have to do the quick math, 27 weeks in France.
This is one of my favorite conversations that Wendy and I have. We'll be like somewhere fabulous, whether we're in France, right? The last time Wendy and I were officially together, we were in the south of France in Cannes, or
Yes.
Cannes. However, I'm always
Con,
confused.
because, oh no, because we can.
Oh, because we can.
That's
Okay.
right.
And we were sipping rosé on the Mediterranean, right?
Oh my
And
gosh.
like you said this because Wendy was continuing on from our trip to one of her beautiful trips that she leads. And like I think you had said at this point it was less than 27 because you hadn't quite been in those. And I just to normalize, I was having this conversation the other night. Like I want to normalize for my children. Going to Europe is not a once in a lifetime thing. People spend more money going out drinking on the weekends than it costs to get a coach flight to Europe.
That's right. That's
So
right.
it is this normalizing of seeing the world, of living your like it doesn't have to be a dream. It can be something that you're doing. And I love like you do normalize that. You normalize it for me because I have like I argue for my limitations on travel sometimes,
Yes, you do.
which is so fucked up because
Yes, it is.
there is nothing really more that I love to do.
I know.
I mean, other than like, the other things than travel.
Right. It unlocks everything for me.
Huge. And I'm
Yeah.
so as I'm saying this, I really think I'm committing to your France trip in the fall. So I'm saying it publicly, right?
Yes. I'm
It's like
so
leaving my
excited.
kids for 2 weeks. So we
Mhm.
may have some work to like have to do around that. And
I'm here for it, Queen.
so
Yeah, I think it's so beautiful because even what I just said about how travel unlocks everything for me, one thing that I realized this year, earlier this year, I went on a cruise and I didn't think I was going to enjoy that type of travel, but it was an Abraham Hicks cruise and the whole
mm,
thing was phenomenal. And I had a suite. So I had all of these special, like private pool and private dining room and private lounge. And it's essentially flying business class instead of economy.
mm,
The plane lands at the same airport, but it's a completely different experience. That's how
yes.
it was on this ship. It was unbelievable. And as I was listening to people talk about how they weren't really looking forward to it being over and going home and going back to reality, which is just nonsense. And I had this beautiful awareness that I love being at home as much as I love being away from home because I do both so often. I'm just obsessed with my life.
So, what I want to really point out here, however, is that this didn't just happen. Like, people are going to be like, I can't do that. So, that is not actually true. But, Wendy, you have intentionally carved
Mhm.
out,
Yeah.
like, you are only available for a fabulous life. And that is what you are now living. And it goes back to what we talk about. But what you were saying is like, it is a choice.
Mhm.
It is a choice.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to start like kind of with some questions, but then because I could
I
just talk
know.
to you for so many hours, right? Okay. But I think this is like a good one to lead. Like, what is a truth in your life, well, that you felt was illicit that you are now claiming fully?
Mm, it's so good. I think it is saying yes to myself because I referenced January 2020. That was a time I signed up for this online business course. I had never done anything like that. Although I had been an entrepreneur for 25 years, but I had never spent one penny on promoting my own business or educating myself. It was just super scrappy. I did well, but
Can
I
you just
just
share for a moment, because it is part of your background, but what you did do as an
I
entrepreneur
was
for
a wedding
25 years?
planner. I was a wedding planner for 30 years, but at this point it had been 25 years. And it was just one of those things that kind of happened. And then I just kept going and doing it really well. And only had word of mouth clients and still had 10 weddings a year. So it was very fun, but I didn't
And this is in
really,
Northern California. Like this is at
yes.
this point, Wendy's in Northern California.
And then I moved to New England in 2013. So I was still doing weddings here, but not at the house, but in New England. And I just started listening to this woman. she had a 5-day challenge and I joined her course, and it was about, being paid to do what you love. And I was certainly doing what I loved, but I wasn't being paid, you know, the amount of money I was getting paid to the level of my wealth consciousness. That's
Sure.
for darn sure, which I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so fun. If I charge too much, somebody's going to know the jig is up and I'm not going to be allowed to do this.
And just for the
Hi.
listeners who aren't necessarily familiar with what wealth consciousness essentially is how you value yourself and how much worth you actually allow yourself to be in. It goes deeper than that, but that is essentially the root of wealth consciousness.
Yes, thank you. And it's so interesting to even reflect back because the words feel yucky coming out of my mouth to say that I didn't know that I was allowed to have more. I didn't know that I thought that I was just supposed to be grateful for what I had, and that
Yeah.
that made me a good girl and a good Christian and a good wife and a good mom. And I wasn't mad about it. I just thought that's the way that it was. And something was said over and over again in this course about agency and about we get to decide. I was waiting for someone else to give me permission to live the big life of my dreams because I had big dreams. Like I was moving to Massachusetts, I was going to be Martha Stewart. Like I'm full of good ideas, all the good things, but I thought that somebody else had the missing piece and that they were going to tell me what it was or invest in my business or do something that I wasn't going to be able to do for myself. So sorry, such a long way to a ham sandwich.
No, it's so important because I actually think that is the story that many of us women carry around. I had that story for
Mm,
myself. So what's personal we know is universal, right? So it's
thank you.
important
Yes.
because I think as you are living your dream now, there was a point you didn't know that was possible. And there are many women, people, but I'm specifically like,
Sure.
talking to
We
women right
prefer
now
them.
who may be in that space. And so it's
Yes.
important like to name that.
Yes. And thank you. And I really want to share. I wasn't mad about it. I
Mhm.
just thought that
Accepted it.
this is how it is. Like I thought, oh, I'm allowed to want. I'm not allowed to have it, but I'm allowed to want. I wanted to live in New England my entire life. I packed 3 times for a cross country move from California and twice unpacked still in California. So I wanted to be a mom. I spent 24 Mother's Days before Amelia joined. We adopted her from China before she joined our family. So I was no stranger to waiting.
Mhm.
So I thought again that this, I was allowed to dream about these things, but I wasn't going to ever have them unless someone who knew more, had more money, was smarter, had a better idea, and told me what it was. Then that was going to be what unlocked this door. All to find out the person I was waiting to give me permission was me.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I am a quick study. I only had to hear that once. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, then here we go. And then I heard that we could be, do, and have anything that we desire. Oh, okay, let's do that. So, and I'm already full of good ideas. I'm already full of dreams. I just started doing them. And then it was the pandemic. So I started doing them online, and all of these sweet people that I never met were liking it and commenting and DMing me and telling me I was amazing. And I was not getting a lot of that at home by my husband because he really liked me to do everything that I do for a party of two for
Mhm.
him and our then 5-year-old. Like that, why can't I just be satisfied making all of these meals for them?
Again, I think that is a common thread. I think it is a common thread that why can't you be satisfied in the life that you have? There seems to be a almost like people do believe that like it can only get so good,
Right.
right? Like it's good. So why you don't get to want more? That's wrong, that's shameful, that's selfish, that's greedy. Like you need to be happy with the plate that you have. And I just want to name that because that is again a common thread, especially I believe with women.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I was recently introduced, well, I was introduced to the book 2 years ago. I recently opened it. It's been on my shelf for 2 years, called On Our Best Behavior. It's the Seven Deadly Sins and the Price Women Pay to Be Good. And everything in that book is completely rocking my world. And it's so much of this. It is this policing of our desires in every form and making sure that we're productive. And I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, I could talk so much about that. Sorry.
Which
Okay.
Wendy is doing a book study. When you start following her podcast, and we'll have a link,
Yes.
Wendy is doing a book study. We'll have information about that. I actually just joined that today. So
Oh,
I did
good.
want to do
Thank
that
you.
plug because I'm excited for it.
Oh, thank you. I just think this conversation is so necessary. So unraveling this thought system was happening at a pretty brisk clip because I was in this vacuum of the pandemic, but I still had this community of female entrepreneurs that I had met from that course. So I was actually coaching a group of people twice a week. And it was the first time that I had ever been in regular conversation with any entrepreneurs. I had
Mm.
only known people in corporate. So I was always making myself smaller in comparison and, was also being told that I was small in
Mhm.
comparison. So it was a really fascinating time and vacuum to grow and expand and really create a root system in this new way of thinking. But it was also in stark opposition to how I had been formally showing up. And my now ex-husband was not a fan.
So walk us through this a little bit because again, common thread, your midlife, right?
Mhm.
When did you start to first notice that there was some contrast? I mean, like serious contrast,
Yeah.
like between you and your now ex-husband. Like when did that no longer feel aligned for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, it's such a fascinating, great question, Elizabeth, because in retrospect, he didn't change.
Yeah.
Right? So I used to refer to him as my prince, and he was, and it was completely appropriate the whole time I was a princess. But I promoted myself to queen.
Yeah.
He was not available to promote himself. And so it wasn't even that something happened and my new mindset couldn't align with what was happening. It was as if I just realized I needed glasses. And I thought, oh my gosh, the trees have actual leaves that are individual. I mean, I just saw things that I wasn't available to see before by my own choice and my own decision and by my own form of gaslighting myself and all the things. But when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And
Yeah.
I was now in this immersion program of reprogramming my thought system, and everything that I was learning was the opposite of what I was living. And I'm not available for that.
Yeah.
So that began a really long process of about 9 months that was prompted by a conversation from our mutual mentor. I went to a retreat about a year before I met you, and it was about growing your business and all of these things. And so it was my turn for coaching. And I was so excited because, again, I thought someone outside of me had the missing piece. And so I asked if I could record her answer for my piece because I wanted to be really present. And she did this thing that she does sometimes where she closes her eyes and takes a deep breath before she talks. And now I know that's supposed to scare you, but I didn't know it then. And she asked a really simple, beautiful question. She asked, if I was in full freedom, if I was in full choice, would I be with him?
Oh, I have heard this story more times than I can count, and I get chills every time. It's got nothing to do with like one having to leave their husband. It's not that. It is the question of if you were in full choice and full freedom, would you?
Mhm. It's a question we should be asking ourselves every fucking day.
100%.
Oh my gosh. And I was not, I just, I thought we were going to talk about my business. And she repeated it. And I turned off the recording because I don't know, I don't want him to find my phone. And I actually don't really recall what was talked about the next 40 minutes of that conversation. But what it did for me was, again, it just gave me some clarity. I didn't realize that was an option
Yeah.
because he wasn't beating me and he wasn't cheating on me. And those two are in the Bible. And I didn't think that I was allowed to just choose me. I didn't know, I didn't understand that happiness is not only a goal of mine, but it's a goal of the divine. The divine wants me to be happy more than the divine wants me to stay married. That is for damn sure. So that started a then 9-month process of what I refer to as sitting in the question.
Mhm.
And I had already implemented a morning practice that included journaling and meditating and praying and reading. And I'm so grateful. Like, when you look back, you're like, oh, that's why I started that, because I really needed to already be in the practice of holding space for myself. And that's what I did. And I journaled through all of these questions. I surrounded myself with support as I journaled my way through those questions. And I also took an extended trip to France with my young daughter. She was in second grade at the time. And this was already on the calendar. I was leading my second trip to France for solo female travelers. And it was during that time I was having a conversation with a friend and the women on the retreat. And we were talking about our marriages and all of these things that they were not satisfied in either. And we were finding so much of our own stories in each other's. And after that, one of the women said, wow, Wendy, I didn't realize that you were so far along into your decision until tonight. And I said, that's so interesting because I didn't realize I was so far into my decision until tonight. And so when I returned home, I had a courageous conversation. And I believe that my courage set both of us free.
Yes. There's that belief that when one is not happy in a relationship, that actually the other one isn't either. They may not be
Totally.
completely conscious of it, but what is for the good of one is for the good of all. So that can be a really hard truth to hear. And yet, when you have space from that, you can see how true it actually is.
Absolutely. And for me, those 9 months, which that's not a magic number, but it was really important because what it did was it solidified my alignment.
Mm.
And I worked on my relationship with me. So my knowing and my certainty was so established that although my courageous conversation was not the end of a 9-month process for him, it was the beginning of one because he acted as if this was new information, which is shocking, but it's okay. So he was hurt and he said some really mean things over the course of a few months before he moved out. And had I not been in that practice and had this alignment, that would have knocked me off. And maybe I would have thought, oh gosh, what am I doing? Oh, I am making a terrible mistake. How am I going to make money? How am I? Like all of these things that he was accusing me of, not accusing me of, he was projecting was going to be my experience. Like he would just walk into the kitchen and say, where are you going to move after you default on the taxes and you can't pay the house payment and you have to sell the house? Where are you going to move? Because I don't want to get a lease on an apartment if you're going to move to I mean, some dumb thing. And I could just respond, well, there's actually no scenario where that happens. So I'm not going to expend any energy coming up with a plan B that's going to make you feel better. So because I was grounded in who I was and grounded in the absolute certainty that my husband was not my source, God is my source. And I knew that God would provide everything that I needed.
Okay, I do want to just pause here because I think that this is where the illicit conversation comes in. Okay, and apply it to your ex-husband, apply it to you living your dreams, apply it to you completely always believing like in you and in your source. To understand that there is an alignment between us and the divine, between us and God, between us and the universe, and that it is our job to get into that alignment in order to be in this connection, and that that is our ultimate alignment. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your Christian denomination is. Regardless, it is that connection that we are able to find that certainty, that we are able to find that, you know what? You can throw as many stones as you want. I'm not buying. Like, I'm not, I got this. And I think that when you are sharing this, and this is one of the reasons I wanted us to talk, because as beautiful and fun and fabulous as like this all sounds, it is truly you knowing
Right.
and being like, no fucking no, nobody is throwing me off of my path. Like,
That's right.
my path is this. I know that God has shown this to me. Like, I am like, you can say whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. You did it with Olivia when you knew you were going to get.
Amelia.
I'm God. I do this every time.
Okay.
Amelia, I'm so sorry. But
Sorry.
you knew that she was coming.
Yep.
You did it with this. And Wendy, this is like so powerful.
Thank you.
It's so powerful because I have absolutely been in the place in whether it's in my business or relationships or mothering or whatever it is, when I haven't been in that alignment. And when something has been said, it happened last month. I think that you and I had a conversation around it. There was something that was said and I let it throw me off. And that's where we get like, that's where the mind fuck, that's where the confusion
Totally.
comes in. But when we are in our practice and we are in our certainty and we are in like our plan and in that God connection, that is the place where it doesn't matter what anybody else says or what anybody else thinks, even if it's your current husband. And he's saying some really, I mean, he's in his own fear, right? Like that's why he's saying that to you.
Yeah.
But like you are in your divine self, not your ego self, and you're able to handle that. And that is the beauty. That is the inspiration. That is like the lighthouse that people can look to.
It was otherworldly for sure. Like it, and I will say it's a result of immersion, right? So my commitment to myself is real. I was up at 4:45 every morning. I was in the library of my house. I am committed to this practice, but it's like any practice. Like you're a runner. I don't run, I run errands. But something happens when you do the thing that feels hard and then you see the result, then you're like, well, this is the body I want. And running does that. So I'm a runner. And I can say, this is the spiritual suit that I got by getting up early. And so I go to sleep early. Like that is just, it's important to me. And I also immersed myself in community of women that believe what I believe and were committed to their growth. And I did not have any other conversations except for conversations like this.
I also think that's the other big piece. I think when you are in your awakening and you are on your growth path, really surrounding yourself with people that are wanting to grow, that are of a similar mindset. And you see it, that's why people join churches, that's why people join clubs, that's why people join, sports. We see it everywhere, but especially like within this work, because there is such a vibrational quality. I mean, it's all about vibration and it is a very intentional thing. And I love that you did that. And then you've created your own like community.
Oh yeah, I haven't stopped. These are still the only conversations that I'm available for. I really didn't go back. I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking, God, it's kind of like people that are in recovery when they say, like, I need a meeting. That's how it was. Like I was immersed in these conversations, just like if you were training for a marathon, like you're going to do the work, you're going to do the training, you're going to eat what you're supposed to eat that is going to fuel you for what you're doing. And that's what I did. And when we would have these, they weren't really conversations. When I was being verbally abused in my own kitchen, I was able to show up in a way that was so grounded and queenly that it was super triggering for him.
Yeah.
Because I was essentially covering my ears saying, la, 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 I'm not listening to you. But what I was doing that energetically, but I would ask, oh, can I take notes? Because he would tell me things to do every day anyway. We live on a farm and he's a researcher and I'm an experiential learner. So he would do all the research and then he would tell me, give me a list of things to do. Again, happily received because I didn't know any better, different. And so I would ask if I could take notes and he thought I was taking notes on, whatever tax nonsense and I would literally be writing down, Keith Harrop is not my source. God is my source. I can be, do, and have anything that I desire. My God is a God of abundance and prosperity. Like, I don't even know what Keith was saying to me because I was just writing these affirmations. I appreciate that sounds completely wacky.
Is it a problem that like I can't see it any other way? I mean, yes, to other people, it's probably sounds completely. I'm like, absolutely, that's what you were doing. We can't listen to like anything else other.
Right. I just couldn't. And I want to be careful with my words because I'm tempted to say, I have no idea how I've been doing it since he left. Also, this divorce has taken 3 years. I do believe we're in the home stretch. Like that's ridiculous.
A very long divorce.
It's ridiculous.
For two people who really like
aren't fighting.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like it's as someone who, works with people on conscious uncoupling, and I see quite a few of these. It is interesting that two people who are fairly like amicable, like, and who really neither want to be married to each other anymore.
Correct.
Although, I have my own opinions on that. That it's a 3-year divorce, but
yeah, it's ridiculous. He doesn't want to break up with what he considers to be his money. That's my thought about that. However, am I grateful for the woman I've become in this. And when I say, like, I don't know how this is happening, like, it is happening. And I actually do know. It isn't because of some strategy. It's not because I got a part-time job. It's not because I have a sugar daddy. It's not because of anything outside of my connection with the universe that this is happening. I will say that I have leaned heavily and happily on my credit card investors, and I completely consider them investors. They're really smart people at American Express, and they think that this is a good idea. I do too. And it's like, I need to live and I need to have beautiful opportunities to be my beautiful self. And I don't say that meaning like I'm not going on a bender and shopping. What I'm saying is I'm building a beautiful empire. I'm building a business. I am investing in myself. And that trajectory is growing and keeping my energy high as well. And that high energy is bringing more clients, which is building my business. So it's this constant current, this constant flow. Money is coming to and through me. And that is what keeps it moving. If I went into, oh my gosh, scarcity mode and held on so tightly when we were first divorcing and then realized this was going to be 3 years of clenching my fist. Holy shit. No, thank you. I think that that was something that was practiced in my desire to live in New England my whole life, in wanting to be a mom. I had these desires. They were not manifesting. And I lived the life I had until I got the one I wanted. And so that practice is also what I've been doing during this very long, drawn out process is I'm saying yes to myself. I just bought 30 acres next door to me. I used a retirement account that's not included in the divorce settlement. And I don't really care if someone thinks that that's a really bad idea for my tax. Like, I don't care. Like, that is for me. And I'm making decisions again that are in alignment. And so other people's opinions are really not a consideration of mine.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when you are setting about and cultivating and living a life that you love, other people's opinions can't be
Nope.
an opinion. My son posted this. It was a rapper, and he's sitting in the back of his car, and it says something about if other people's opinions still matter to you, then you're not doing your work. And I was like, damn.
Yep.
And it's true. And I just want to honor, like, I want to honor you in that because you do live like what you speak, like what you say, what you talk about. This is what you live. And I love that you teach it to Amelia. I love that this is part of this is your world. It's not just something that you talk about and then it's different behind closed doors. So I want to ask, what parts of this, if any, like, do you think that you once did hold in shadow or in shame? Or if it's not something around what we've talked about, is there something else that you did that you have hid in shadow or shame and that was a process for you to overcome?
I feel like, let's see, it's such a great question. I don't think that saying yes to myself cost me my marriage. I think my marriage was costing me my yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the way that this has played out and the way that it is working out and that I'm totally winning, like that feels illicit in not as shadowy, but in a so bright that am I allowed to say? Am I allowed to say that I use my credit cards responsibly, but not if you asked my soon to be ex-husband, he would not say that's responsible. Is it okay to say that I love co-parenting because I have 3 weekends and an entire week every month that my daughter is in a safe place with someone who loves and adores her, and I can be available for my business and my clients and myself in way that I don't have to stop and make dinner or do a school pickup or drop off or any of these things, I feel like I'm really onto something here. And
I agree.
right. And it feels like, ooh, am I allowed to suggest? Am I allowed? I hate that even the beginning of that sentence, but it feels like that. Am I allowed to suggest that women can make a decision, and if their marriage is not in alignment for them, that they can leave, that they can complete, and that they can not only just not have that draining relationship, but that they can thrive, and that I can say, not look at me, but come with me and I will show you how I've done this, because I'm doing it all for me, but I'm not, I mean, I'm doing it like I'm motivated by my own joy, but I'm sharing it because I want women to see. If you're asking yourself, oh my gosh, how I'm a stay-at-home mom, how am I ever going to sustain living in that house? Like, well, you're going to plant some flowers and sell them. And then you're going to have floral design workshops in your barn. And then you're just going to, like, whatever dreamy, fabulous thing that you think of, you're going to offer. And some people are going to want to do it. And then they're going to pay you. And then you're going to be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm living a life I love and getting paid for it. Wow.
And those are the conversations. This is
Yeah.
why the illicit feminine, like I felt so drawn to create this. It's because this is the space that we're going to say, hey, people put so much shame around credit
Mm-hmm.
cards. Let's
Yeah,
have a conversation about what credit cards can do for us. Now, like I don't have an agenda or anything on like that,
totally.
except for the fact that there's shame around it and people don't talk about it.
That's right.
So I want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
The other things that we have like are hiding in the shadows about, yeah, like if you are in a relationship and you want to leave and you feel like money, which is such a big factor, right,
Mm-hmm.
is holding you back, let's look at what is possible.
Right.
Like what you just said, all of those are the divine inspirations that you got that you have made happen. You said another one, the credit card, and then
Co-parenting.
co-parenting, another conversation. I feel like within our group, Wendy and I have been part of a group for several years now, and a lot of the women in there were divorced. And
Mm-hmm.
every single one of those women, and this is again, I believe a shadowed conversation. I believe it is
Mm-hmm.
something that people feel and it is not talked enough about because there's so many different opinions around it and conditioning around it. Love co-parenting. These women love having time to work on, granted, they're all entrepreneurs, love having time to work on their business. They love having time to come back to themselves. So, like, right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever somebody's opinion on it, like, these are conversations. They're
Mm-hmm.
conversations that it doesn't have to be about fear or lack or scarcity. And this is why I love that you have brought these up and that these are conversations that, like, let's have these conversations.
And a million more.
100%.
Right? But yeah, I mean, someone just asked me, we had supper club last Friday night, and they asked me because Amelia's been with her dad all week. Oh, are you sad? Like, nope, I'm not. She's safe. And she's in a place with someone who totally loves her.
Yes.
So no, I don't feel bad at all.
But
And I'm super excited when she comes home.
again, I believe, or I don't want to say I believe because that's putting like energy into it, but I see these conversations where there's an expectation for the mother to be
Uh-huh.
sad. There's the
Right.
expectation for the
Yeah.
mother when the kids leave for her to be sad. And I just spoke to a woman the other day who was thrilled that her kids are going to college because her and her husband actually got to have time together again. Let's talk about these things that are looked at as shameful, right?
Right. I'm here for it.
Like real. And for you, I think that you sharing, no, I'm not sad. Like it's great. We're not in 1950 anymore. We're not
Right.
like repressing all these things. We're not hiding all these things for fear that it's the wrong thing to say or it's not
Yeah.
something we should talk about. Because the other thing I was going to say around that, motherhood, I think it's this
Yeah.
piece of if you're a mother, then you shouldn't need or want time to yourself.
Right.
So I think that's the piece also of you're shining the light on, hey, no, I want that time. I want
Yeah.
that time.
Totally. I mean, I remember Amelia asking me, so Keith had moved out, and it was a few weeks later that I was going to France for a month, leading a couple of trips. And so she was going to be with him for the whole month in his new apartment. And she was nervous. I mean, she wants to be with me and all the things. But she was like, Mom, I just don't understand why you have to go. It's like, oh, I don't have to. I want to. And you're going to be fine and you're safe and daddy loves you and you get to have Sprite and like whatever. Like you don't get
And your iPad.
Right, exactly. It's like, actually, let's think about this. Look at all the things you get to do. It's just like, oh, that's pretty good. But I want to model for her something different. And I want to model for her what alignment looks like for me. And then I want to remember that sometimes her alignment puts me out or makes me have a feeling. And I get to honor that in her as well.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I could talk to you for 38 days about all of this.
Like I said, we're going to have to do this just more often because there's so many great conversations. And I love hearing your story as well as your wisdom and your insight. So, kind of wrapping up, one of the last questions. What part of your feminine experience are you still learning to love and hold? Like what's a piece that you don't feel is not quite full?
How do we close with that? Oh my gosh. Okay, so Elizabeth, I haven't had sex in over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, I was married for 22 years. So way over a decade since I haven't had sex because it was while I was married. We could just call it 25 years. So I haven't had a normal amount of healthy intimacy.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like. I know what it looks like to be incredibly promiscuous in my late teens and early 20s. And then I got married when I was 23 and then divorced. That's a whole another show. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole thing.
We're going to get into that one too. Yeah.
And
how many times you've been proposed to? We can't.
Oh, right. Because that outnumbers the marriages. And how many proms I went to. Oh my gosh, I went to 5 proms. And then I had sex with one guy actually from high school because I ran into him at the reunion in between my 2 marriages. So I have not had sex in, I don't know, since my 20s. I mean, I had really great sex with my first husband, but he was having sex with lots of people, so that makes sense. But like really, it's like I don't know how to be a grown, empowered, enlightened queen of a woman and date, let alone be intimate. And I'm 57 years old. My body does not look like it did when I was 19. And this mindset of why do I even think that it has to? But it's just like, that's my last frame of reference is I was hot because I was 19. So it's really, this is some seriously uncharted territory. I'm so happy to have you in my life to help navigate this because I can see how this could be a topic if I didn't have some accountability around that I just let be okay, just the way it is. I mean, look how happy and fabulous my life is. I go to France. I do all these lovely things. Do I really need intimacy? Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I do. But I could see how I could talk myself out of it just because of being uncomfortable.
100%. And I think, again, this is a conversation that women in midlife, whether they're married or not, okay? Like whether they are married and not wanting sex, not having sex, wanting sex, but not with their husband. Like this is a conversation. Sex is one of my favorite topics ever.
That's why I'm so happy to have you in my life.
I mean, I'm beginning a Tantra training. So I
don't know what that means.
Tantra is like a form of Buddhism, but within it, it's actually like the practice of Tantra sex. And I'm like a newbie, so I'm just learning. But it's a lot about meditation and like the
Ooh,
practice is a meditation, but within like a sexual atmosphere. And for those who are Tantra experts, if
okay.
I'm completely fucking this up, forgive me. But this is
That
TBD. No,
sounds
not
good. It's
TBD,
like
to be
yoga
continued.
and sex at the same. Those are two things on my list. That
But it's
sounds
actually
brilliant.
what I love about it because it goes to my whole being self-centered, right?
Yeah.
It's actually like you figuring out like the first parts of it are really learning about the male and the female anatomy so that like women know their bodies because I
Mhm.
think that's one of the sexual disconnections was that's what it was for me is being so disconnected from my own body and thinking that my pleasure had to come from a man. So we'll have to continue this conversation. I
Yes.
have one last question for you.
I
What
have
would
one
you
more illicit thing for you.
Oh, tell me the illicit.
I got a divine download a few years ago, 2 years ago,
Okay.
to add pleasure into my morning routine because, which was so hilarious, because I just think God
Mhm.
is so funny. Because I thought it was really, I mean, I was arguing with myself as I
Yeah.
was receiving this. It's really important that I don't hand all of my power over again. And the
Mm,
next person that makes me feel like that, I could give them a lot of power. And so I have that power myself.
absolutely. Our sexuality, I believe it is everything. I
Mhm.
really do. I
Me
believe
too.
how we show up and who we are is so wrapped up in our sexuality
Mhm.
because our sexuality is our relationship to pleasure.
Mhm.
It's our relationship to our bodies.
Right.
It's our relationship to our worth. It's
Yes.
our relationship to God. And it has gotten, oh my gosh, it has gotten such a misconception throughout the centuries. And I think really opening up this conversation and changing like completely this view on sexuality and sensuality and having women take it back as just your own power. Like it doesn't have to have anything to do with anybody else.
There's enough to go around.
There is. So, what would you tell a woman who is still hiding her truth?
So, first, I would create sanctuary for her.
Mhm,
So, one of my favorite things to do is to hold space for women that are holding space
mhm,
for themselves.
mhm,
Because any big question like that really can't be answered if you don't feel safe. And so I would invite her to the Phineas Wright House for a beautiful solo retreat. And I would pour her a glass of champagne and give her a warm, fuzzy blanket in the library and a journal and a pen that felt good in her hand. And I would ask her to just start writing, what does freedom feel like?
mhm. Wendy Harrop, you are an amazing human being.
Thank
I had
you.
chills when you were saying that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for showing up fully and authentically as you only do.
Thank you. I look forward to being back for more conversations because
Mhm,
I feel like what I shared today happened so long ago.
mhm,
You know, it is the story, it is the catalyst, it is the things, and you've heard all of them. And I'm not even the same woman that I was this morning because of this commitment to growth and expansion. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to remind myself of how far
mhm,
I've come,
mhm.
but also to know that it's a to be continued
Oh, 100%. This is just the beginning. Just the beginning.
for sure.
Oh, thank you, Wendy, so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. And we will be back soon on the Illicit Feminine. Remember to come as you are in your light, in your shadow, in your illicit. We will see you soon.